Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of the Blacklist Season 1, Episode 9 and Episode 10. We gotta do the Anslo Garrick stuff back to back. This is a two-parter. This is an awesome two-parter, by the way. I consider Anslo Garrick to be like peak Blacklist. I could watch these episodes just like all day long. They're so good.
They are so good for so many reasons, but one of the best reasons is that these two episodes were really the period of time where we got to know the task force really well. Like this is where I completely fell for Harold Cooper of just like how tough he is, where no matter whose life was on the line, do not open that box, do not give that code. It doesn't matter who it is. I don't care. I was like, wow, like you are really tough, man.
Yeah, like there's so much awesome character stuff in here. There's some good mythology stuff. There's a lot to talk about in terms of long-term implications and so much more. So just buckle in, prepare for a lot here.
Yep.
We've got a bumpy, crazy ride ahead. And of course, we want to hear from you guys about how you think certain parts of this could apply to the future, but also hit that subscribe button because our Blacklist rewatch with you guys is continuing every single Friday leading up to whenever the show is back.
Yeah, we're going to be doing every single Friday. We're going to be doing an episode. I know we're doing two this time, but yeah, we're going to be doing an episode. Plus, we're going to be bringing you the Blacklist Season 10 news as soon as filming news is coming out, premiere dates, all that good stuff. So the best way to know about that, stay in the know, is to hit that subscribe button, stick with us, and follow us over on Instagram at Matt and Jess TV for just, some fun with us.
All right, so speaking of some fun, here are some fun facts. And I know 90% of the time if somebody says, here are some fun facts to you, you're just going to be like running in the other direction. But just hear me out here. These are fun, kind of. Okay, so these episodes were originally like the last ones before like the show's first big hiatus when, all the way back in Season 1. And part 2 of Anslo Garrick is actually, if you take away like premiere episodes, specifically the pilot and the Season 2 premiere, and if you take away the Super Bowl episode, because that really shouldn't count anyway, part 2 is the most watched episode ever of this show when it comes to just like people tuning in live. So like this is when fascination with the Blacklist is at an all-time high. And let's face it, at that cliffhanger in part 1 with everything with Dembe and then, Luli getting shot, it's like I more than understand.
Yeah, I mean, this was really where they showed us that they aren't afraid to take huge swings and that nobody is safe. When I first saw Luli get killed like that, I was just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like, I thought she was going to be somebody who was going to be a player with Red for a couple of seasons. And the fact that they're just going to kill her like that, 1, 2, 3, bam, gone. I was like, oh, wow. Okay, this show is fearless. And we also know this because Megan Boone left and they killed their leading lady. Like, there aren't very many shows that do something like this. Spoilers ahead for Vikings if you haven't seen it. Okay, they also killed a main character. They killed their main character and still went on for a couple more seasons, and the show was still excellent.
Yeah, it's a rare thing to be this bold, this willing to make these sort of swings, but it's effective for so many different reasons here. Like, killing Luli establishes that nobody is safe. And then from there, not killing Dembe and seeing how desperate Reddington was to save Dembe and Dembe's speech to Reddington, which Dembe hadn't spoken too much before this really, so that made like this performance from Hisham here like all the better. But they established so well in this episode specifically how important Dembe is to Reddington, and they have paid that off all the way into Season 10 where we are now.
Yeah, they really have. These two episodes really established a lot. Like I said at the beginning of this video, it really showed us just how hard Cooper is. It showed us the relationship with Dembe and Red and how deep and spiritually deep their relationship is, that they are more than just people that work together. They are family. There is a spiritual connection between them. Like, it is deep. We learned also sort of how badass Wrestler is as well, and how tough he is to be going through what he's going through with his leg being shot. We also learned how, caring Reddington is. And we've seen this already in quite a few episodes, but that even somebody that's been hunting him for years, that he lost his fiance over, that Reddington is still like, I'm going to save you right now. I'm going to give you blood transfusion. I'm going to make sure that you're okay. And I was just like, wow, this is a guy who does really care.
Yeah, it's such an important episode for establishing, or 2 episodes for establishing just the lore of who Reddington is, what matters to him, what he really cares about. I think we get so much of that.
Man, that speech that he gave to Wrestler was God, like, I was like, Emmy, where he was just like, I just want to have another bottle of good wine and then another. And he's talking about all these wonderful things in his life. And you could see it even with Wrestler too, where he had said that, he lost his fiance, she left him. And I was like, fiance, man, I completely forgot that he had a fiance who's now engaged to somebody else. I was like, wow. It reminds me of just how rich this first season is for everyone. Like, even more with Aram as well, where we really got to learn like his anxiety and how nervous he is about stuff, and sort of his low self-confidence and things, even though he's quite brilliant. There was just so much here. It's very rich episodes.
I'm so glad you brought up Reddington's speech to Wrestler, because that is one of my favorite Reddington speeches of all time. I could watch that a million times over, and it just establishes so well who that character is, in addition to like that personal moment. But I think really the vessel that makes all of this work, and this is something I think the Blacklist forgets a lot about now, is just you need an incredible villain. You need an incredible person to go up against, and Anslo Garrick is just like, he is a psychopath. He is just like this, just complete, I don't know. He's just like charging full speed ahead the entire time. He's got like, he gives 0 Fs. He goes right into the post office. He's got a team around him. Like, he is dangerous, intimidating. He's got a serious grudge. He's one of the biggest higher ranking blacklisters we've seen so far. And he really earns that title in these episodes.
Yeah. He got shot in the face by Reddington. Yeah. I completely understand why he's like, nah, dude, my dude, no, we're gonna have this talk, and it's not gonna be great. And it was such a shame now that we're going into season 10 with everything with Wu Jing and the list and everything that's going on, that Ansel is not alive to come back, because Wu Jing brought this to him and was like, oh, by the way, also this, Reddington was an informant for the FBI. He's not even going to care. Ansel's going to be like, oh, sign me up. We're on a revenge tour against Red. I don't need another reason. Sign me up.
Yeah, Anslo would have been 1,000,000% all for this. Anslo was just waiting for the right opportunity. And, here he gets the right opportunity, and it doesn't matter to him however many sort of resources are out there. Like, it's a bummer he's dead.
Yeah, and the whole reveal that Ansel went through all of this to very specifically get Reddington here with the FBI in their protection and in their safety to pull him out, so that, and it's not even really for himself. Like, yes, he made this deal with Alan that afterwards he was going to get to sort of like do whatever. And, Alan at the end was like, nah, you can't kill him, but whatever. That it was all for someone else. This sort of reveal that Alan shows up and is just like, I just want you to know that I know you're in bed with the FBI, and that's a problem for me. But I need you to know that I could have snatched you out the street, out of a park, but I chose to do it like this because I wanted you to know it doesn't matter where you are. The FBI is not going to protect you. No one's going to protect you. So just know it. I was just like, oh, ooh, chills. Like, it was so good.
This is how you know, like, how big the Blacklist was back then, that you're able to get, Alan freaking Alda
I know.
to come on this show and do this role, which is just so everything. This is like the anti-Alan Alda role. Every time I think of Alan Alda, I do not think of Alan Fitch, who is just like nefarious, terrifying, incredibly intelligent. It's like he is like this ultimate, double agent working all sides sort of character. And, he's a really big part of the early part of this show, just because really it's another person who knows a lot more than sort of they let on, or even that they let on in this scene with Reddington. And it's another shame that a lot of characters like this kind of go by the wayside, because we're entering season 10 now, and we're sort of like, who can be the person who reveals all the secrets of Raymond Reddington and who he is and what he was and what he's up to. And it's like, okay, well, it can't be Alan Fitch. It can't be, Anslo Garrick isn't there to help Woojing anymore. It's just like, who else is still out there at that point?
It also can't be Mr. Kaplan, because she's also dead. And this was our first introduction to her as well, where Liz gets away from Anslo, but before she does, Reddington's like, Mr. Kaplan, this hotel, call this person, sort of thing. And she shows up and helps her out. And she's like, listen, Liz, I got 2 missions, and that's to make sure that I can rescue, Red. And also I have to protect you. It is my mission. So I'm here to help you through all this. It was a really good introduction to her as sort of not just the cleaner, but also the person who's going to be there for her. And we saw that moment too with Liz, where she picked up the phone. She was like, all right, I have figured out that I'm being watched from across the street. I'm going to call Cooper. And she does for a second. She hangs up and she's like, no, I'm going to call this person that I don't know, that I don't know anything about, because I have finally bonded with Red in a way that I hadn't before, and I trust him. It was sort of that first moment of like true trust.
And it's something that, it pays off for seasons on end. And Mr. Kaplan is such an integral part of Liz's story, and that's what makes everything, in season 4 all the more interesting. And like, okay, let's talk about the very end of these episodes, because it's like, this is the producers really being like, we're going to leave people on this big cliffhanger. We're going to address the question that they've all been wondering for these first 10 episodes. Is Reddington Liz's father? And he just says straight up no. Now,
however, he paused for a very long time before he said no. And I know that there's sort of this established idea that Reddington doesn't lie to Liz. But at this point in the show, he hasn't actually said that to her yet. I'll never lie to you ever, ever, I promise.
It's true. And I think
he has alluded around it, but he hasn't said it.
I think that's what makes this reveal so complicated. And for a long time, I wanted to be in this camp of like, okay, he didn't mean, I'm your biological father, but I don't act like your father. I'm not, a father figure to you. So it's okay for me to say no, because I'm kind of talking around it. And I was trying to justify it for a really long time in my head. But I've sort of come to this place now where, especially after, No Chalo, and we saw those flashbacks at the end of season 8, where I'm just sort of like, okay, he probably isn't Liz's real father, but he, on some level, has this big connection to Liz's father and has this big connection to Katerina. Like, I don't believe that Katerina is Reddington either. I think it's somebody else who was kind of there, who kind of understood all of it, like a family member, maybe not literally, but at the very least metaphorically. And I think at the very least, maybe he's just hesitant to answer anything here because he doesn't want to give her any information at all.
Yeah, I think they're still in that getting to know you phase of the relationship and building the trust kind of phase. And it's building, but it is still early on. So I think that even if he was her father, which, I don't really know, I don't think so, but he, I think, could justify saying no and feeling like he's not lying
Yeah.
if he is actually her mother, or if he is her father but is like, Sam's actually your father.
Yeah.
Like, he's your adoptive father. He's the one that raised you. He is the person who stepped in as your father. So if you're going to ask me, am I your father? No, I wasn't around.
Yeah.
I didn't raise you. I wasn't your father.
Okay, tiny beef with this episode, and I say this because I love these two so much. Liz talks like about the death of Sam for a few minutes at the start of this. And it's just like gone. And it's like, okay, I know nothing was. Sam just gets totally shafted throughout like the entirety of this show, and it still drives me crazy.
I think there's this really important part that has to do with Tom. And I know that we had later on, Reddington was like, oh, you can't trust your husband sort of thing. But I think it's a really important conversation that she had with him at the beginning of this about Sam, where she's kind of like, losing Sam for me as a person who's been adopted, and that, with him goes sort of my roots, or sort of anything that I could ever really kind of know about myself, because I don't know anything else about myself. I don't have any connections to who my biological parents are. Where with you, Tom, you have those roots, you have those connections, you have those things that even if your parents pass away, that you can still reach into, of sort of your legacy, genetics, everything that goes on with your family. And when Sam has passed away, it's just over. I don't have anything else. It's all just like poof kind of thing. And I think that there's not a lot of shows that cover adoption and sort of that theme, where I think there's a lot of people out there that can really relate to that. And I was really glad that the show touched on that, because it is a different experience for someone who is adopted.
They do have these really good emotional moments here or there where they get into Liz's psychology, who she is, why she thinks how she does, and it's really prominent throughout this first season. And that's, once again, the shame about later on, is that she gets so obsessed with this idea of answers, even though these answers may never make her happy, that she loses a lot of this identity, like this part of her that is, Sam's daughter, where she looks towards him and understands a part of her life through him. It vanishes, and it's just sad. It makes me sad.
Yeah, I think that you hit on exactly what it is I think that her relationship with Sam, it was established as very important to her, that this was the only sort of parent she had, but he came in and died so quickly and moved on. But this small conversation with Tom, I think, kind of needed to be a bit of a bigger conversation, so that when she does get to this important question of, are you my biological father? Are you my real father? That kind of thing, that it really sets a deeper footing for her as an adopted person who has lost their adoptive father and is looking for answers on who their biological family is, so that they can find sort of something that is missing.
They just put a little bit more in there. I think this reveal could have been even better. I mean, in general, though, it's still great to go back and rewatch Anslo Garrick and just like see these action sequences, get into these characters, and it sets us up for so much more through the next part of this season, which we will be back doing every single Friday. So hit that subscribe button so you guys do not miss that.
Yep.
We will see you here next time.